let's bring on our first guest. Hello, Josh.
Hi, Sonia.
Brilliant to see you, everybody. Josh Hamilton is here with us. He's an author, political commentator, and founder of the Gist website. How are you doing this evening, Josh?
I'm pretty good. It's the first time I've been live in a while, so that's exciting.
Well, fantastic. Thank you so much for joining me. You obviously sent me a copy of your book. It was released last week. You were originally going to come on last Friday, and of course, we didn't have a live stream. But you're here now, and I'm really grateful, and so much to talk to you about, really. So let's get cracking. First of all, tell me, what motivated you to write your book?
Well, I mean, it was quite a while ago. I wrote a piece about how I thought potentially some of the Brexit campaigners were going to be quite happy to be free of the EU if we could get free of their tax harmonization sort of regulations that were coming in. And I just wrote the piece like offhand, and it suddenly got like 50,000 views out of nowhere. And so I realized there was probably more to this, and started spending like some time looking into the motivations potentially for leaving the EU and the types of people who were donating to the campaign. And then I sort of tumbled down a rabbit hole of how the campaign was run, and of the way it was potentially the best example we have of how social media can be used to disrupt elections and to potentially swing very tight votes in one way or the other. And I kind of believed that it was worth exploring, since no one else really seemed to be.
Absolutely. I mean, it is a huge story in its own right. And it was at one stage as well about all the sort of Cambridge Analytica stuff that was going on. And so we know categorically that social medias are problematic when it comes to elections, for starters, don't we?
I mean, like the biggest thing for me is that we have these fantastic examples of how it can cause like serious polarization, how people can end up having stupid debates over issues that shouldn't even be on the table, or end up just becoming incredibly just angry at each other for some reason. I think it's part and parcel of the style of communication. But we know all this, and we know the dangers of say dark ads on Facebook, or the way that the algorithms and filter bubbles kind of work to polarize our communities and our entire society, and yet we've done nothing about it. Like we had the DCMS committee did a huge report. They had like a whole bunch of witnesses in, people explaining just how dangerous this technology is. And then we've all kind of just moved on without doing anything about it. And as useful as that is for me trying to promote my book, given that I highlight all these issues, it's kind of concerning for our democracy.
Yes. I mean, you highlight many issues, and we are going to go through them. So let's talk first and foremost about the fact that the government have been throwing absolutely millions at digital advertising for a significant period of time.
I mean, it started, you could probably point to the 2015 election as the first time that it really was used in the UK. And it was the first time that people were able to micro-target adverts based on your location. And the Conservatives who were straight on that with Linton Crosby they won a surprise majority. And I don't think it's a coincidence. But then by the time we got to Brexit, the figures that we're talking about are absolutely astronomical. Like the Leave campaign, the main Leave campaign had a budget of £7 million. They spent like half of that on digital campaigning. Like that's just an amazing amount of money. Like, and if you think about like the amount of reach you can get with that much money being poured into, they paid for 1 billion ad impressions. Wow. And it's such it's really difficult to get your head around a billion ad impressions. Like that's ridiculous. That's like hundreds for every single person that voted in the referendum. And we have to like recognize that this is an issue, and we have to like do something about it, because the idea that the reason we don't have political ads on TV, I believe, the theory at least, is that politics belongs on the doorstep.
Right.
You should not be campaigning from behind a TV camera, or in this case from behind a laptop, and you should not your reach should be based on the amount of people you can convince to wake up at like 7 a.m. on a Saturday during election season and go and talk to people about your ideas and be passionate enough about the way that you're going to change the country to go out and do that. And when you can just sit there with algorithms and machine learning that will just will test thousands of different adverts. I mean, the Cambridge Analytica tried variations of like 40 to 50,000 ads back in 2016 during the Trump campaign, and they can narrow it down through testing, and you don't even need to click on it. If you don't click on it, they've still got a data point from which to learn.
Yeah,
and it just that was 4 years ago. Or almost 5 years ago, and yet we've still done nothing about it. And this technology does not get worse. Like, it's not sitting there degrading in its ability to understand us. And that's like the biggest takeaway I think I want people to understand. Yeah,
we're being ruthlessly manipulated, aren't we, on social media?
And it's for me, it's the scary thing is that I think we all kind of know it. On like in the back of our mind, we kind of realize that this is not good. Like, one of the things I highlight in the book is that when Facebook were designing their mobile apps, or when any of these social media firms were designing their mobile apps, they brought in like addiction experts to get you to stay on their app or on their platform as long as possible. And we make gambling, for example, illegal for 16 euro for kids, right? But we'll give them at like 10 an iPhone or whatever with Facebook and Instagram and TikTok on it that is playing on the same circuits in our brains as a slot machine does.
Yes.
And we're just all right with giving that to children, and that also kind of concerns me. And I honestly don't know how you stop it.
I know it is difficult. I mean, as you point out, most of the time that people spend on social media, they are the product. And that it sounds like such a simple point, but it's something that people constantly forget about, right? Because like you say, every single moment that we spend on there is being tracked, every single moment.
Yeah, and it's like they're tracking your mouse movement, the amount of time you hover over certain posts. Like, every single thing is being tracked and collated, and that gives them such a ridiculous understanding of our behavior on that platform. Because if you think about the amount of time you spend just scrolling. Like, I would encourage anyone to do it. I installed this great app, and it tells me how long I've been on certain platforms. And I had the app for a week, and I deleted all my social media from my phone because I was horrified at the amount of time that was just being lost.
Yeah,
just absorbed. And that's like, it's not only stealing your time, it's like them understanding how better to sell us a product, or in a more sort of scary way, how to sell us a political idea. And that is just terrifyingly dangerous.
Yes, yeah, horrible. As you describe Brexit as an establishment civil war, expand on that for me.
I mean, the idea for the title kind of came to me when I was reading The Hobbit. Actually, I was rereading it, and it was that moment just before. I don't know if you've read The Hobbit.
My brother started reading it to me when I was 5 years old.
Okay.
Well, that's the kind of family I come from, Josh.
Okay, well then, perfect. So it's just before they go into the caves in the Misty Mountains, where they get where they fall through the trapdoor and into the goblin's lair. And it's where the two stone giants are fighting each other, and they're trying to dodge, Bilbo and the dwarves are all trying to dodge the kind of fallen rocks and the stone giants and get into their cave. And it kind of, for some reason, it just flicked a light bulb. It's like, this is literally the British people dealing with Brexit, because we're watching a disagreement that sprung out from the upper echelons of the Conservative Party. That's really been there since we joined Europe in the first place. And that's not me saying I'm on either side of the debate. There's a disagreement in the Tory party, and it kind of expanded out to the entire establishment. It's those who believe that Britain and their position in the status quo are more secure in Europe or out of Europe. And the out of Europe side obviously won that. But like the debate there was about like regulations and tax evasion or consumer protections, and these issues are not what the people actually cared about. Like
Right.
if you look at the reason that I'd say most people voted for Brexit, I think it was to take back control, and in the least ironic way possible. It was like them trying to say, hey, look at us, establishment, we're here, we're the people, we're still
Yeah.
suffering.
Yeah.
Or I think it speaks to people who feel that like the world is getting larger and more complex, and everything's sort of running out of control, and if someone offers you that opportunity to I don't know, harken back to a time before this was all around, I think you're going to spring for it.
Yeah.
And I think that the reason I use the title "The Establishment Civil War" is because we're watching the ruling class fight it out,
Right.
while we've got a completely different like set of circumstances to deal with, and whatever you believe, like whether you wanted to leave the European Union to not be part of like the European superstructure, or because you're worried about the economic situation, or because you genuinely think Britain should be better off outside to like make laws outside the European Union, like whatever that is, like that's not going to happen.
Right.
Unfortunately,
Right.
it's like what is going to happen is we're going to get the result that the establishment won, like the side that won anyway, that they're going to get their Brexit, and the people are going to be left suffering, I think, unfortunately.
Right. So what I love about your book is, so what you do is you link together this establishment civil war, the very shady, dark money that has been funding the fight, the media, the social media manipulations that are taking place, how we are manipulated, but then you go deeper into it and you start to talk about the neoliberalism that has been surrounding us for absolute decades. And you sort of go from Thatcher, Blair, Brown, Cameron, Osborne, up to present to Johnson. Give us an overview of that and why that's important to your book.
I mean, like I didn't have this part of the book actually in mind when I started writing it. This isn't how I envisioned it going.
Right. Oh, it's the way was the way, isn't it?
Yeah. And I read early on, I read The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, which is just fantastic piece of journalism. I think it took her like 7 years to put together, and I can see why. Yeah. But anyway, her theory of neoliberalism, which is basically the trifecta of deregulation, cuts to public services, and sale of state assets. She basically says that in order for any population to agree to this, it is always preceded by a crisis of some form. And she uses a lot of examples from Latin America, from the collapse of the Soviet Union, from the economic crash in parts of Asia, and says, look, this set of policies that are just textbook free market neoliberalism always come after some sort of shock and crisis. And I think in Britain we've experienced 3 waves of that. We had Thatcher, then we had Blair and Brown, and then we had Cameron and Osborne, and now we've got Boris, and we have unfortunately probably the biggest crisis or chaos or chaotic situation facing us right now than we've seen in a long time. And I believe that Boris and the kind of free market neoliberals that occupy his cabinet are going to use this in order to ram through more sale of state assets, more NHS privatization, and deregulation that again is hurting the normal people of Britain, and will be as we've seen, they're very happy to do with the COVID contracts, like to the benefit of their friends and donors, and not the people.
Right. I mean, because the thing is that, as you say, you set out to write one thing and you sort of ended up writing another. So that was obviously a sort of organic progression through your thought process. But obviously, as you were researching, you were discovering more and more. Did you go through any periods when you were researching this book when you just thought, we're screwed, we're in trouble? Did you ever have those moments?
Yeah, it continued for quite a while after I wrote it. But like honestly, I feel vaguely, really strangely, a little more positive now.
Right.
Just that I feel that like, okay, we've got this I feel we've got this amazing opportunity actually right now because yes, we're leaving the EU, and if you ask many of the follow back pro-European crowd on Twitter, there is no upside to that whatsoever. There will never be a possibility that Britain could have any benefits whatsoever.
I know you found the optimism, you found the silver lining to this cloud, haven't you, Josh?
Yeah, well, I hope so. But basically, I think that we've got this huge period of upheaval. Right. And we had this string in the 21st century, essentially, and the last 5 years more than ever, where everything has just felt like relentless, that we're just going through this crazy roller coaster and we're strapped in for the ride and there's nothing we can do to get off. And then we've had like the lockdowns, and as much as I'm not a fan, I think there's definitely going to be some sort of like psychological change. Or
oh yeah, for sure.
And what exactly that entails, I don't know. Whether it's a good thing, I don't know. But it's given us this opportunity to take like a break from what was considered like normal 21st century life. And I feel like there's a possibility we could use that to do some really good stuff, maybe.
Oh, I'd love to think. I'm always looking for silver linings to clouds. There's loads of comments here, Josh. I think I should read some of them, really. I saw at the beginning, Josh, the paradox is the strategy and relies on is called mass disconnect. I saw, when you started talking, I heard somebody say, or rather I read somebody say, oh, I like Josh's voice. Hello, Josh. Hi, Josh. Shake him handy, George. Oh, Josh has a yummy voice. Chico's mummy. Hi, Josh, says Nikki. Romford bloke says not just his voice that's yummy, blush. Okay, it's clearly you're doing very well in here. So the thing is, Josh. Oh wait, there was a message for you then. Just that I've just gone past. Chico's mum. I have Facebook and YouTube, but got rid of Twitter, Insta, and WhatsApp after the Trump fiasco. George going off at love the Lord of the Rings and the Hobbit. Absolutely. London lady, I got rid of my TV in 1988. So this is the thing, Josh, is that so basically online has become the new battlefield, hasn't it? For our hearts, our minds, everything. So when you started to go into the research of it, and as I say, were there moments when you just kind of threw your hands up and thought we're screwed and everything? But when you started to look at that campaign, didn't it just sicken you how manipulative it was? The Leave campaign was reprehensible. It played on every fear possible, didn't it?
Yeah, and they did it brilliantly. Sometimes I could get really depressed at the motivations for the way that they campaigned, especially like the very, very like anti-immigrant tinges that the campaign had.
Hated it.
And like you can get really mad at the just the way in which they used that, and honestly, like the fact that they were able to do that online was part of it. Like there's part of the things I came across while I was researching was Dominic Cummings like talking about how at the start, whilst they might like pump the immigration line on social media, they weren't going to do it in like their mainstream media appearances, so it was all like hidden until the very end of the campaign, so that people were wondering why the levels of like anti-immigrant sentiment and vitriol were rising while the Leave campaign were just like pumping it online. It just makes it's so difficult, like, and this is one of the things I wanted to bring up to kind of like get a grasp on how people react and interact with all of these phenomena and right. things that we've been talking about, because we are literally not built for this. Like humans are just not built for like having to wade through this like cesspool of misinformation and like lies and just everything that we have to try and like wade through in order to get some form of truth or figure out what's going on any issue. And I feel like we probably need to like recognize that like humans aren't built for this, like, right. And like we have to acknowledge that and probably like teach people like what it does to our brain before we can even start to like understand how it's affecting society as a whole. Like we have to get a grasp on like what it's doing to us individually as well.
Yeah. And did you find that through that period that once you'd kind of looked at how the British population were being impacted on this, because we were tremendously manipulated. It was highly emotional. You'd see things like Nigel Farage stand in front of, posters with that, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
this whole idea of being swamped and swarmed by, swarthy foreigners, just absolutely repugnant stuff. What did you get a sense of when you were researching in terms of how it has changed us as people?
I mean, like, I think that it's interesting watching some of the debates about the masks and vaccines and whatnot now, because the country seems to be split along like fairly similar lines. That it seems to be sort of generally the people who would have been very sort of like pro-Brexit tend to be the same crowd of people who are saying, like lockdowns are a removal of freedom,
Right.
masks are, you shouldn't be mandatory, and like this sort, like that sort of thing. And I think it like really, it shows us how we're very much divided along lines, and whatever issue seems to come along, we seem to just split over it.
Yeah.
And it's really quite concerning. Like, for example, in Northern Ireland, we had our own special version of it where there was like suggestions from some loyalist politicians or unionist politicians that, it was the Catholic areas that were the problem. They were the ones with all the high case rates. And I was like, this is just ridiculous. Like, we just take anything and map it on to these like divisions that are already there. And that's essentially what social media has done to us, is that we just like go with our like bubble or go with our like tribe on everything now.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Tell me what you think about Google, the power of Google.
Oh, Google.
I mean, where do you start, really?
Yeah. I mean, Google, and people just think you mean the search, but there's so much
Right.
more than just
That's
the search
right.
as well.
Break it down.
Yeah, because you got YouTube, which is YouTube is seriously problematic.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Just like, first of all, like the way their algorithm works, it tends to like push people towards more and more extreme stuff, and that's just their way of like hooking people in, because they're trying to find like an extreme niche for you to get lost into, or like a rabbit hole to fall down. So like, say you watch like a couple of videos on like running, like all of a sudden you'll be getting things for like ultra marathons, or say you like start going I don't know, for like vegetarian cooking, all of a sudden you'll see like vegan diet videos. Like they take everything that you look for and like shove you to the extreme.
Yeah.
And that's just the search algorithm for the videos. Like their control of information is terrifying. I can't express enough how much I would suggest that people just try a different search engine, just to try it. Like,
what would you recommend?
I've started using DuckDuckGo, and
people have actually been recommending this in the chat. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I find it's just really interesting to see what comes up, because if you search Google, right, for like a news story, like all the most like mainstream authoritative sources come up, and you get like the Guardian or the BBC or something, and then when you search like DuckDuckGo, you tend to get like a weird mix of different news stories popping up, and sometimes I find it easier to find things that I'm looking for there. So like, and yeah, Google is very problematic. They need broken up, probably. And it's the tiniest little things. They can like shadow ban you. I know Peter Hitchens has claimed he's been shadow banned. And the size of even just YouTube, like we're here on brand YouTube, which is really cool. I love to see like new platforms popping up, but it's going to take time before they can like displace YouTube. And like, I feel like the Joe Rogan move into Spotify was probably something we'll look back at as a moment, potentially as like a turning point, when people decided that like YouTube isn't the be all and end all.
And we need to, because obviously all of this, everything you're talking about that's in your book, is all about shaping our thoughts, isn't it? But not just shaping our thoughts, shaping our spending habits, shaping pretty much everything, our attitudes. I mean, it is really, really scary. But some people would say, Josh, playing devil's advocate, some people would say, what is the problem with Google tracking me? What is the problem with Facebook knowing my movements? What is the problem, Josh?
Well, I mean, It depends how crazy you want to get.
Right.
Honestly, I think people have a right to privacy. I think there's a reason that we have that right, and I think there's a reason that the founders of America put it in the Constitution.
Yeah.
I believe that we have that right to privacy because, unfortunately, history has shown us that if people have power that can be abused, it will eventually be abused, and this is more information on than has ever been accumulated by any government ever. Like, go back 30 years, and I'm sure there would be dictators who would sacrifice like their own child for this much information on the population. And now we just sort of hand it out to companies that have the GDP of a small to medium country and have zero basically regulation on what they can do with that data. Like, GDPR was a nice start.
Yeah.
But it's like, people, I think the thing that I keep trying to remind people of is, like, if Facebook or Twitter didn't have your data, right? If they just like allowed you to post, they didn't collate anything, they would be worth nothing. Like,
that is the bottom line. That is the bottom line, exactly. So as you say, we are the product, and we mustn't forget that. Absolutely. Josh, before I let you go, give us a parting shot about the Establishment Civil War. First of all, where can people find it?
So you'll get it at establishmentcivilwar.co.uk. There's a chapter preview there you can read if you'd like. You can find it on bookshop.org, which is a nice alternative to Amazon. It is also on Amazon as well, if that's all you want, or you get it at johnhuntpublishing.com. You can follow my podcast on YouTube. The podcast is called Chatter. The channel is called The Gist. Follow me on Twitter at Give Me The Gist. And I'm also on Spotify and Apple and wherever you get your podcasts.
Fantastic. Josh Hamilton, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Everybody, Josh Hamilton, please go check out his book. It's fabulous, give you a real insight, give you the creeps as well. It certainly made me shiver. Josh, take good care of yourself. Thank you for joining us this evening.
No problem. Thanks very much, Sonia.
Brilliant weekend. Thank you.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.